What up, guys? Jason Guyman here. Tonight, we're going to talk about communication and how to sell better and how to grow your business, how to sell more Christmas lights, quit selling bulbs and sell lights, and how we can do that through communications, how we can do it through ways that we can speak better to help our customers. And I do have a special guest on, but before we get there, I've had a heck of a busy weekend. I have been to Charlotte, North Carolina. We had an amazing class down there. We had almost 20 people. We had some awesome people down there in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so that was pretty cool to have class down there. We had people like Dean Smith and other people that had showed up for the Christmas light class. And so from that, we also went to Georgia, North Georgia, to see Tyler, and we shot a whole bunch of video. Now I got a lot of work to do to get the video off, but that is where we are with that. And so it was a great weekend. I've been talking to a lot of people. A lot of people are starting to get busy on the Christmas light season, which is awesome. I'd like to hear if any of you all are getting busy on the Christmas light season too. It is getting there. I know some of you that may be new might be like, "Why you get no job, Jason?" And I will tell you that it is a little still early. We're not even to the middle of October yet, and it is still a little early. And so if you're just starting your first year, I always say give it to November, and I've seen it, people telling me, "Well, Jason, you just don't understand. You can't get it in my area. You can't get the premium pricing, $8 a foot in my area." And then I'll say, "How many quotes have you given out?" And you'll be like, "I gave out 4 quotes. Awesome. Remember, our close ratio for Christmas lights is anywhere from about 10 to 20%. So that means you have to give out 10 quotes to be able to get 1 or 2 jobs. And a lot of times you don't know how to sell at this point. So you will have to give out 20 to be able to get 16, 17, 18, 19 jobs. And so we'll talk about some of that tonight, of how to talk to people, quit selling bulbs on peaks, and how to sell jobs better. And so that's kind of my goal for tonight. I do have a special guest on. I've just seen who else is on. If you're on, give me a shout out. Let me know how you guys are doing. How was your weekend? How is business going? And I would love to hear a little bit from you all as you all are joining. And I don't know if I'm not getting any comments through, but I do see one comment through. And I know we got more people on in this, so I'd love to hear some of your comments. But while we get that going, let's hear, let me find out. Philip, tell us a little bit about who are you, where are you from, and just a little bit about your story.
Hey, well, first of all, Jason, thanks so much for having me on here. Excited to be here to talk about my favorite thing, which is communication. And so a little bit about me. I was born and raised in the Houston, Texas area. About a decade ago, I moved to Greenville, South Carolina, have a degree in electrical engineering. You're probably thinking, what the crap? This guy is an engineer, yet he talks. Yes, I am a little bit of a unicorn there. But I found through the fact that I wouldn't talk at one point that I got passed over so many times for so many opportunities and actually got talked down to a lot of times. So that's why I started getting into this whole thing of speaking and communicating in front of people. But besides that, I'm now married for almost 5 years. I've got a daughter that's about to be 3 and a daughter that's about to be 8 months old, a Christian, a speaking coach. I also do virtual assistant placement, so helping business owners be able to delegate tasks. And I am just a person that loves to connect with people, help build others up, and as well as myself. And the fitness junkie also in the mix of that. I could probably give you 20 million more titles, podcaster, speaker, you name it, doing many things like most of us here, but just that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So obviously communication, I believe, is one of the most important thing. And that is not only just communicating with your customers, but even communication with your employees. I believe a lot of times we have employee problems is because communication can be a big problem. But one thing I love that you had started out here talking about communication. Let's dig in a little bit deeper about communicating and how you have lost deals because you didn't know how to communicate.
Yes, the most of the time when I lost a deal was because the client came to me saying, "Hey, I want this." And then I just focused on trying to give them that thing rather than really diving in and figuring out what it is that they really needed. Yes, they said they needed help with speaking or they needed a virtual assistant, but I didn't actually dive in and figure out what that actual pain point behind that was. Yes, getting better at speaking or having somebody to be able to delegate work to would be a great thing. And it is something they needed, but I didn't dig down to the pain behind that, which was, hey, maybe they were embarrassed because they didn't know how to speak well or articulate their words, or they didn't like their voice, or they just didn't really, they had so much going on. They felt like they wouldn't be able to, they could hire the person, they could pay the person, but then the person would sit there doing nothing. So they didn't really feel like they could actually get rid of it because there was too much going on in their business and everything. So rather than just looking at, and that's how I lost most of the deals. I just focused on what I thought was a solution rather than the actual pain behind what the solution I could provide for them.
And so this is a great point of finding out what your customer's pain point is. And even in Christmas lights, right? A lot of us always want to go to the solution, and most of your all solution is making sure the bulbs peaked at the peak, and we use these bulbs. But that's not really what the pain is, right? We don't know what that pain is. And so sometimes, what are some ways that we need to figure out what that pain point is?
Really figuring out, I would say, especially for the Christmas light industry, I don't know a lot about it, but for me, I don't want to hang those things. Storing them is a whole nother thing. I want them just to be there, be ready, not have a missing light bulb or anything like that, have to deal with the pain going up and down the ladder. So for me, that's where I would be focusing on, not the fact that this light bulb lights up at the end there, that it stays bright, even if you have one, obviously with the new technology, now that we're not in a series or yeah, we're in series, we're in a parallel circuit now, or I'm not, I can't, I'm an electrical engineer. I can't even think of the circuitry, but anyways, it's not a series, but anyways, whatever the other one is, but like it used to be where one bulb went out and then the whole thing was out. Like now we're not with that. So you're not having to explain that, but people don't care whether it's in a series or whatever kind of circuit is behind that or what the bulb is like. They want to know that they don't have to worry about putting the Christmas lights up, taking them down, that they have to go store them somewhere and make sure they don't get broken or anything like that, or that they have to go replace them or have ladders and all these things. Or, hey, can I happen to have them up all year long, but they don't look like Christmas lights? Maybe that's something they want to do. And so you really need to dive in and start asking questions about why they're wanting the lights and why they want the Christmas lights and everything, and just start to dive into that rather than, oh, hey, by the way, these are the best ones on the market. Da, 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 da. No, talking the technical stuff is not going to work. Unless you happen to be talking to another engineer or another like light bulb expert or something, then yes, you can talk about that. But 99% of your customers could care less about that. They just want to know it works. And
Well,
the
and
thing
you
is pain.
and you know, you kind of hit on a good point of, it kind of know back to knowing personalities, right? If you're a C-type personality, which most time electrical engineers and those types of people are C-type personality, they want to know all the ins and outs. And usually when they call you, they're going to know more about it than you are anyway. And so it is important that a C-type personality is only like 10% of the people. And most of the people are an S-type personality, which is 69% of the people, which they want relationship, right? And so that's why if we can figure out the pain point, are you having a party coming up? Are you, tell me a childhood memory of Christmas. And you kind of hit on, you got to ask them questions to be able to pull this out. I actually was listening. I seen a study the other day, and they had there was a guy, I don't remember who it was, but they had surveyed like it was something like 50,000 people, or they listened to conversations. And of course, they put it through AI. And what they found out is the people that sold the least talk the most on their opening sales call. Like if you talk 70% of the time, you actually sold the least amount of stuff. And the person that only spoke 40% of the time actually had the highest sales rate. And so it's back to figuring out what the pain point is. And sometimes it could be something as much as, it's my grandkids' first Christmas that I get to, that they're coming over to grandma. They haven't been here in 5 years and they're coming over, and I really want to updo it and do that. And, little Johnny is going to be amazing at seeing that. And when we talk about little Johnny in our sales presentation and we communicate about little Johnny, that's going to be a lot better than me talking about a bulbs and, of that. And, it's kind of like back to the point of people that females are our customers, right? We know that 70% of females are the ones that are calling, and they don't care about the other stuff. They're caring about what is their pain point. And I feel like a lot of times we don't communicate that very well at all. And so I guess my question would be, what are some things that we need to what are some good ways to shut up and listen?
As they start to ask questions, you'll start to see kind of the way they start talking about it. But if they don't, even if they don't start showing emotion, ask something back. So, hey, I really want Christmas lights. Okay, well, have you looked up any kind of Christmas lights, like houses? Like, what designs are you looking for? Or just try and ask a question based on what they're saying and almost mirroring back what it is that they're asking. Don't be super annoying, like, hey, I want some Christmas lights. Okay, so I hear you want Christmas lights. Like, no, not like that, but
no, actually,
say,
know what? I want to tell you something funny that I actually heard a podcast last night with it's the Dan Kennedy's podcast with Russell Brunson, and he had Tom on there, which is the dude that rode around with Dan a bunch, and he was actually just talking about this podcast last night of actually asking that question of a question, and he calls it the porcupine. It's like it's ugly, and you just throw it back at him of
yeah.
a question of a question. And he's like, if it's, it can be anything along it. And it was a great podcast. It's Magnetic Marketing. If you guys want to go check it out, it was the last podcast. It's a great, if you don't listen to Dan Kennedy anyway, you should. He's the OG of marketing. He's probably one of the best. He was the first one to do $1 million sales letter. Amazing marketer. You'll learn a ton on that Magnetic Marketing podcast. But again, he was talking about you ask a question to a question. So when someone asks you a question, you just throw them back a question. And it can be as simple as what you just said of like, well, what are you looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Or hey, have you looked up some pictures? Or no, what are you looking for? The laser light show that you see, like some of these crazy ones on YouTube where they got the laser light show? Or are you just looking for something simple and classic? Yeah, just asking that question to dig in deeper, even if it doesn't seem like it's much deeper. Just asking a simple question, get them talking more.
So when we are talking about this, what are some failures? And I know you don't know a lot about Christmas lights, but just in communication, what are some mistakes that we can make as we try to communicate with our customers?
One of the things that I found as a mistake, and I'm guilty of this as well, where I start trying to relate to the customer. They'll say something, and I might butt in real quick and say, "Oh yeah, I had the same experience." And while we're trying to relate with them, sometimes that actually disrupts the flow of their conversation. It almost feels like, "Oh yeah, me too." Like, look, I'm great as well. Like, "Oh, I had that achievement too." And so while you want to say that you want to try and relate, and it's a good thing you're trying to do that, I would be very careful unless it's something like super special. Let's say they're a family person, they mention about being a girl dad, and like, hey, I'm a girl dad too. How many girls do you have? Like, and then bring it right back to them. Don't say, oh yeah, I've got two amazing girls and they're straight A students. Da, 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 da. No, like, oh cool, I'm a girl dad too. How many girls do you have? And let them start talking about themselves again. So really, that's one of the big things that I see. And then, like we've already mentioned, that people just talk and talk and talk. No, you need to listen. Actually, good communication is not completely, yes, you need to be able to communicate and articulate your words, but it's about being able to listen to what the person's saying and start to ask the right questions or answer those questions that they have in the right way. Because it's almost like reading between the lines. They may be saying something, but their posture, their mannerisms, the way they're articulating those words are really saying something different. And so, really listening in is going to be the big thing. And especially with salespeople, they're to me are the worst when it comes to listening. So, the more we can get used to listening and understanding what's behind the words being said, the better off it's going to be for us. So, those are really kind of two things that I typically see when it comes to failures in communication.
So one thing I want to add to this too is, asking the questions when you're listening to them and try to find out what their kids' names are, right? Because now we can start talking about little Johnny and little Susie versus just your kids. And so
Mhm.
if we can communicate that, those are some other questions that we can go go deeper with this communication side of things. So let's talk about, obviously it's going to be dependent on if we are, doing online sales, which we do a lot of over the phone sales or in person sales. But let's talk a little bit about other communication that isn't just speaking. And so, for instance, one would be, online, right? How you answer the phone, how you are excited or not excited, or versus body language. And that can be, and I guess really even your body language if you're doing online sales. Let's talk a little bit about other forms of speech that isn't just communication wise.
Yeah, so especially with online sales, whether you're on the phone or hopefully when you're on video, you're not doing it. But if you're slouching back and you're trying to have the conversation, you can tell my voice already changed just from slouching back. So you're not going to sound as excited. You're not going to sound as enthusiastic when you do that. So really, at least sit up. Because I get if we're on a video, it's hard to be standing the whole time. But if you're on that phone call, stand up, walk around. That's going to help build up this energy. And if you're not excited, if you sound like an Eeyore, how are they going to be excited? You have to help bring those emotions up. So being seated up properly, like sit up, seated up straight, or standing, maybe walking around are things that you could do there as well. I talk with my hands. You're probably seeing a little bit where I'm talking with my hands. Talking with your hands will help you because then when you go in the real world too, you're going to be doing that as well instead of standing there like a statue the whole time. It's going to help with those emotions in your voice and everything. And then also just focusing on, again, sounding excited. What words are you enunciating? Which words are you putting emphasis on to get them interested in that? And then when you ask a question, allow time for them to think about that. It's okay to pause. And actually, it's a silly example, but a lot of times when I'm listening to a podcast and there's a pause by the host, I immediately start paying more attention because I'm like, wait, did it cut out? Is it still playing? What's going on? But because of that pause, I started paying more attention. And so you adding a small pause into your sentences, into the things that you're saying, will actually help that potential client listen in more. And so adding that pause as well will be really helpful for you to have them actually pay more attention to you rather than you just trying to spit out everything within 30 seconds. I get it. We're trying to get that spill out a lot of times. We're trying to make sure we can get out what we need to before they get off the phone. But if we can put a pause in there, it's going to be really good. And then if we ask the question too, pause, see if they're going to actually answer that question or not. And then if they don't, like, okay, we can kind of keep going on because maybe they weren't expecting to answer it, but still pause. Don't say, hey, so does this sound good to you? Well, anyways, let me tell you about our packages. Like, what? Like, I didn't even get to say, yeah. And something you can do with that too to make sure that you give enough pause is literally answer the question yourself. Now, maybe it's like, "Hey, does that sound good to you?" And then in your mind you're saying, "Yeah, that sounds good." And that should be an appropriate amount of pause, because I get what I'm saying. Hey, pause. Okay, how long do I pause? Like, you don't know what to do. So answer your question, or make a statement back to yourself inside your head, if they're not speaking, to know how appropriate that pause is and everything.
And I always tell people too, you got to smile when you answer the phone, right? And you got to be excited. You know, I when you're doing Christmas light is the biggest emotion buy out there by far. Like it is an emotional buy. 90% of people are going to buy off of emotion. And it is one of the emotional buy, and you got to be excited about Christmas lights. Like I had Daniel on the phone, and I know a lot of you guys hear me talk about Daniel, and Daniel did $179,000 his first year, and he's going to do $1 million this year. I don't know if he's
Mm.
going to do $1 million, or I'm going to at least speak it into existence for him. But he's excited, man. He's excited. He's excited when he calls me. He's excited, and you got to be excited, because if you're not excited, they're not going to be excited, because you can change the way the conversation is when they first hear you. If they hear you like, hello, they're going to be like, down to the pits, right? You might as well
Yeah.
just give up at that point. You got to be excited. Put the Santa hat on. Be excited. Play the part, because when you are excited, it's going to build emotion on their side. And when you build emotion on their side, you're going to be able to sell them at any point and any time that way. But if you're just like, hello, that is boring. Nobody wants to be boring. Nobody wants to be like, well, you got to be excited. Whether you're in person, you're in online, on phone, right? And that's a great point of doing Zoom calls, of doing sales that way. A lot of people, we don't even think about it that way. You can think about outside the box about setting a Zoom call or a FaceTime call where you could sell them in person, but not actually being in person. In fact, there was a guy there this weekend for my class, and that's how he sells. He sets them up on Zoom calls, and he's able to sell right then and there on the Zoom call, and he's able to get his message across. And that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that's thinking outside of the box. We don't think about that a lot of time in this, but we're in 2024. In 2024, I feel like the more we're in 2024 and 25, and more AI and more crap, more of that stuff, the human aspect is getting further and further away from each other. And so that's a way that we can bring the human back into it, with video. And yes, I know I can send videos of me talking and it's not really me talking, but it's one of those things that as a Zoom call, we can sit there and we can bring it back together. So that way, as you are communicating with your customers, they're going to be able to do better with you. And so that is definitely one thing. Now, on the other side of communication, I want to hear what your thoughts are for this one of when you give a price, the first person does what? The first person that speaks loses, correct?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That again goes back to that pause. That is probably the most uncomfortable pause, especially for those that are early in their sales career, to sit there and have the conversation. Hey Matt, what's up, man? Good to see you. But when they are first in that conversation in your first sell, and you say, hey, so the price is going to be $2,500, and especially it's your first time, maybe you've never even bought Christmas lights yourself, and in your mind you're like, oh my gosh, that is so much money. But it's so much more than just the fact that the Christmas lights cost X amount of dollars. Your time for installing them costs another amount, that you've got these people working for you. It's the experience as well. You are selling so many things, and it's a package. You're making it easy for them. You're giving them a great experience. Obviously, it's a great product. The light bulbs are amazing. They light up at night, right? All these things. But as soon as you start talking, that lets them know that you're nervous. So you don't feel like it's worth quite that much. So you have to sit there and let them think on that and let them make that move. Like you said, though, first person to talk loses. So get comfortable with the pause, especially after you say, hey, so that's going to be $2,500 to set up these kind of lights on your house. Sound good? And like, don't put that pause in between like I just did, but sound good? And let them think. Or maybe not even say sound good. Just, hey, here's the price.
We can get you scheduled on Monday.
Yeah, we can get you scheduled on Monday. Yeah, give them a direction. Yeah, that's a perfect thing too. Adding that in there too, giving them that direction, because that's something that they could be thinking about also is, okay, so I'm going to hand you $2,500, but what's next? So go ahead and tell them what's next. And that's another thing that I didn't bring up earlier that most people miss in communication is that they don't give the next steps. They don't give that future vision of these things. So going back, we're talking about, oh, hey, they're bright light bulbs and they'll look great on your house or whatever. They'll look great on your house, gets into that vision, but what vision are you painting? How are you helping them understand what these things will look like, what their life will be like once they have these Christmas lights, that next step for them? They need to see that vision, because if they can't see the vision, they're not going to want to pay the money. So share the vision, share the next step so they know what's coming next. Because guess what? I think especially in the service industry, but really small business in general, most small businesses don't have great structure. So if you can just say, hey, we're going to be on this call today. We're going to go through and figure out exactly what your needs are, what you're looking for. We're going to get you a quote immediately on this, and then we're going to schedule the install. You're not going to believe how many people are going to be blown away by the structure you have, by you saying 3 things that you're going to do, or 4 things, how many are I just listed out that you're going to do, but by simply stating what all is going to happen on this call today. Now all of a sudden you have this whole structure, you're so systematized, and people think you're more professional, and then guess what, your prices can go up because you've communicated the expectations up front of what's going to happen.
And a lot of times you can give the vision from what they want. Back to when you ask what they want and you get that, guess what? Then when you go to close it, you're going to paint the vision that they already gave you what they wanted. And,
Yes.
and that's back to shut up and listen in the beginning of the call so you can find out what they want. Because if you don't know what they want, then how can you sell the vision?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're going to start trying to sell your vision, and that doesn't work. I've tried it on my wife plenty of times, and it doesn't work when I try and sell my vision to her. It's got to be hers.
That's
It's got to
exactly
be her
right.
idea.
100%. That's awesome, Luminex. Thanks for helping me. I sold my first hotel today. That is awesome. David
Nice.
Ham, no, evening, guys, just getting home from a profitable lighting day,
There you go.
which is awesome. So, what did AJ write up here? If you guys got any questions, please put them in the comments. We'll get to them here shortly. That way, I just kind of wanted to hit on that. AJ put, what's up, Jason? The Monday night meeting is the best place to hear what others are doing. Thanks for making it nearly 2 hours. Yeah, so if you didn't know, on Monday night marketing, I do marketing. So I usually talk for about 20, 30 minutes, well, about 15, 20 minutes. And it was only supposed to go for about an hour, but it usually goes for an hour and a half to 2 hours. It actually, Monday night went for 2 hours. So if you join christmaslights.io, you can join us on Monday Night Marketing and meet a lot of other cool guys. This is Daniel, who I was talking about earlier. Great advice, y'all. I love Christmas lights. Santa is coming to town. Ho, ho, ho. In his accent that he's got. So
Nice.
definitely
Santa hat in his profile picture there.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm saying, you got to be excited. And actually, Daniel and I was talking, Daniel called me today and we were talking about this because one of his competitors he like when he answers the phone, he's just like, hello. And you got to be excited, right? Because communication isn't just speaking, it's the emotion behind it. In fact, isn't it something like speaking is only like 10% of communication? I think, isn't it something like that, or 10 or 20%?
Yeah, everybody has different percentages, but yeah, the actual words that you speak, the literal words that you speak is only like, 10, 20%. It's a very small portion of it. The body language you use, the tonality of the words, how you're articulating those words is what matters the most. And by articulate, I don't mean by sounding eloquent and having every syllable pronounced properly. Like you can have a little bit of mush mouth because you're a hick, you're from, I don't know, let's say Louisiana or something like that. You're from the swamp, or anything like that. But it's about having that excitement in that, showing that, oh, I'm here, like let's go, like being excited about it. How is your body language being? Because the words are just words, but it's the emotion behind that. It's how you're carrying yourself behind that that's really going to get people excited or wanting to work with you.
And even like when I seen you get excited, right? Your body starts moving, everything starts moving versus hello, right? You got to be excited about this stuff. And when you are excited about it, I tell you, it is one of the best things ever, because when you're excited about it, they're going to get excited about it. And when they get excited about it, guess what? Their wallet is going to open, and that's going to make you even more excited, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's the whole point of selling Christmas lights and having a Christmas light business and being successful is, and it's kind of back to what I said earlier of, our close rate is not a very good close rate. So if some people are only going to get 10% and some people are going to be able to sell 20%. And a lot of it's going to come down to is how excited are you to be able to get this to be sold? And you know what? It's going to be hard to get through those 8 no's to get those 1 or 2 yeses. But you got to remember that it's a number game. Every no that you get is closer to a yes. And you can't get discouraged, because if you get discouraged, guess what's going to happen when you're discouraged on the phone call? It's going to come through. And if you allow that discouragement to come through on the phone call, guess what? You're probably not going to sell that one either. And so it's all about how you do your body language. And you see me, I love using my hands. But guess what? It makes me more excited I get, the better off I am. And, I put the Santa hat on. And when you do that, it's like you're magical at that point. And so it's
yeah,
a way to have fun with this and not just blah, 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 right? And it doesn't matter if we're talking pressure washing, Christmas lights. It doesn't matter what we're talking, what service you're talking about. If you are blah, 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 guess what? Your customer is going to be like, this is stupid, and I'm going to go on to the next person that's going to treat me and have better communication. Now, I want to move on to the next part of communication,
I
because
want to give like one example here real quick. So we're talking about this energy, and it sounds kind of woo-woo and everything. But think about when you're walking by and you see in a crowd and you see a group of people and they're smiling for a photo. You can't help but smile as well. Even if it's a little smirk, you see them all smiling, and all of a sudden you start finding yourself smiling. Or at least maybe I'm just weird, it's just me. But I at least start to want to smile because I see other people smiling. So it's the same thing when we're in these conversations. If we're excited and we're amped up, people can't help but also rise to the level of energy that we have. But it's the opposite. If you are just down in the dumps and everything's the worst right now, they're going to lower their energy to you because you are the person, you are the one controlling that conversation. You are the one controlling the energy in the room. So make sure you're raising the energy of the room rather than lowering it.
yeah, I agree. So the other thing about communication too is not just the writ or the voice side of it, but written side of it, right? How many times
Mhm.
we communicate to the customer? Are we letting them know what the next step is in the customer journey? And a lot of times I feel like people, one, you don't do the follow up. So if you don't follow up, that's communication. Then two, once they do sign up, are you communicating of, hey, tomorrow we're going to be there, hey, we're on the way, hey, we're finished with the job, hey, right? And so, and then after the job is done, hey, did you get, how does the job look? You call them back the next day, how does the job look? Is there anything else? Obviously we're going to try to get our reviews for that. And then are we going to keep communicating as the season goes on is very important. And so I want to hear some of what might be some of your thoughts on how we can do that better.
Yeah, something I immediately thought about that probably people are thinking, well, I don't want to do all those communications because that would be really annoying. But again, it goes back to professionalism. That's very professional for you to say, hey, we're going to be here this day. Hey, we're on our way. And I've had that with actually some of my VAs where they sit there and they're like, hey, just checking in. Hey, by the way, doing this. Hey, this, that, and the other. And while sometimes I'm like, okay, that's cool. Just do your thing. But at the end of the day, I really appreciate that because they're letting me know what they're doing, what's going on. So I don't need to go check in and see what's happening because if, I'll use $2,500 again. If I gave you $2,500 and I'm just hoping it's done and I don't hear anything from you, yeah, maybe you had a great service, but it was like, it was okay. But if you're constantly checking in with me, or maybe not constantly, but if you're checking in with me, giving me status updates and everything, I think that'll go leaps and bounds and create that professionalism and really set you apart. And something I thought, and I know I'm not answering the question, but something else I thought about here to make it better, take a picture of it when you're done. Send that to them as well. Hey, we're done. Looks great. Da, 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 da. Or even make a video. Hey, we just got done. Look at the house and just, I mean, you could just pan around real quick, doing a selfie video. You're showing yourself. You're showing the house. It's building that know, like, and trust, that rapport with them. So there's a lot of things that you can do there. But when it comes to the text, yeah, just communicating and making sure that you're crystal clear on that communication as well, because it's very similar to an email where it's a very formal thing. It's kind of a black and white thing. So you want to make sure it's very crystal clear and be short and concise. Don't try and write out a complete novel about it, about how you're going to make all these stops here before you get there. Like, no, hey, we're going to be there at 8 o'clock today. And make sure you say 8 a.m., not just 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. today, and say those very quick, clear, and concise things. That way they can check it, they can see it real quick, and they can go back about their day. And unless if you're needing to give a bunch of details, hey, this thing happened, just to let you know, we're going to have to come back and schedule this again. Feel free to give us a call, whatever. But just try and be as clear and concise as possible on that and make it as brief as possible as well, not try to give them a whole novel in a text message when you're communicating.
Yeah, I actually like several things that you just said here. Eric, I think it was Eric Becker said that that was in the chat here earlier that he will actually tell them, "Hey, we will be there at 8:15, 8:17." Like you'll look at his ways, and he will tell them, "Hey, I will be there at this time." So that way, if you're going to be early, you better not be that late. But if you're getting there early, you can say, "Hey, you know what? We're on our way, and I'm going to be there at 8." That way it gives them, hey, this is what time I'm going to be there. And so that's a good thing too. And I love the video idea. I think honestly, this here is the biggest thing that a lot of people don't do. In business, I feel like it's all the little things. And a video that when you first get there can be huge, right? And when you leave, that can be huge. And the reason why I say that for is I just went and got my oil changed the other day, and they literally did a video of, because I dropped it off, they did a video, they showing who the person, the tech was. He went and showed, all the stuff. He went and showed me my brakes, and he showed me my tires and how the depth gauge was and how much it was supposed to be. And, he communicated amazingly. And by him doing that, I gave them an extra probably $2,000 because they upsold me on a bunch of stuff, where if they wouldn't have done that, I probably wouldn't have spent that money. And so it's important that you do these little things that will separate you, right? People always want to know what's going to separate me from my competitors. This right here will separate you from your competitors. If you knock on the door, nobody's home, you can send them a video and say, "Hey, I'm Jason. I'm going to be your today's elf, and we got a couple other elves over here helping today." And have fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Be like, our elves are going to be up here putting lights on your house. I'm Jason, and this is Brian the elf, and these are our elves today. We're going to put up the roof line and the reef, and when we're done with the job, we'll turn it all on and send you a video when we're done, right? That little bit. It don't have to be huge. It could be a 30-second video. Send them that video because they're not home, and guess what? It's going to be it will send you. I will guarantee you will see it in your reviews. And when you
Yeah.
see that in the reviews and other people see that in the reviews, that means you are communicating. And sometimes people are always worried about, well, what if I communicate too much? I promise you, you're not communicating too much. You will hardly ever. Will there be times that you will communicate too much? Possibly, but most of the time, most people are going to love it, and they'll refer you to all their friends and everything else.
Yes, yes, yes. And a marketing tip here for you as well. So make that video. Hey, Miss Johnson, look, we're done with the house here. It looks amazing. Thank you so much for your business, whatever you want to say there at the end. But then you stop that recording, you do another one. Hey, just finished up another house here with Christmas lights, because people online want to see results. They want to see that you have done something. It doesn't matter what the house looks like, it doesn't matter what light bulbs. They just want to see that you've hung a light bulb. So they're not the first person dealing with that. And the other cool thing with this, and I would also take a picture as well. So if you do get that review and maybe they don't put the video in there or they don't take a picture, you can go back and, Miss Johnson, it was so awesome. Like, your house looked great. Here's it was, you had a beautiful house. Da, da, da. Just say something simple and put the picture in there as well on that Google review, the Facebook review, or whatever, as you're commenting. And then people, as they're going through, they're going to see that picture now, or they're going to see that video now. So have that, so you can have that for marketing as well. But it's there to build that rapport with the client. But then you can take a second video real quick, 10 seconds, and it's a results video. And now that's great marketing for you on social media, because again, people want to know that you can deliver a certain result. And now they're going to trust you that much more because of that. And again, that's what's going to help you stand out from all the other Christmas light people, because your face is in that video too. You're not just another person that just posted a bunch of Christmas trees, or it's not Christmas trees, Christmas lights on houses and everything. Like, you're in that, and now there's that personal connection to that. Like, just like you said, and I'll just use Jiffy Lube here, but at Jiffy Lube, you've got Dean at Jiffy Lube, that's your technician, and now all of a sudden, it's not you just went to Jiffy Lube, and next time you'll go to Quick Trip or something. I don't know, some other name. You're going to go back there because now you've dealt with Dean and you really like Dean a lot. So you associate it with a person rather than just the service or the company's name, which is not relatable.
Yep. I mean, it is, and sometimes I know it can be hard and it can be overwhelming, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can overcome these things. And so that is just a way you can do this. So Jamie, it is not too late to start a Christmas light business. There's a reason why I have one more in-person class coming up in November. I wasn't going to do it, but the last year I had several people ask me right at the last minute. It is not too late to start a Christmas light business. I would say start it. You've got all of November is really the time. I've had Jason Murphy. He started his Christmas light business. He came to one of my trainings on November 12th, and he ended up making like $40,000 his first year. I had Jeremy Main from Pink Pro Wash. He started his business right about that same time. They ended up doing 30,000. It is not too late to start a Christmas light business, but for sure, it is never too late to start. In fact, if you learn some this year, it will take away some of the learning curve for next year. So the other thing too is what's the best way to keep track of strands for takedown? I already use company cam. You all use zip ties. I like zip ties. And keeping it simple. It's not about over complicating it, right? My simple thing is use red zip ties. Why? Red for right. Put one zip tie on the first floor, put two zip ties on second floor. Guess what? That gets 90% of your stuff. And then you could do pink for peaks, right? And so if you have dormers, you can put pink ones there. So that's a way that you can keep it simple and not make it up there. What's up, guys? First year, I have three books on schedule, already selling to existing customers. What's up? How are you all guys doing? Quotes are starting to close. Hopefully have a great season. First year yard signs not here yet, but one person in quote Facebook ad said no. Again, it takes time. It is one of those things to do. Just thinking I can have my brother-in-law dress up as Santa, and I could put in for one package they can select rent a Santa. Yeah. Hey, and actually, that's not a bad. I know people that do that. So I want to hit on a little bit because this is something that is. I feel like people. This is one of the hard parts of hiring, and we've heard about VAs, but let's talk a little bit about how we could use VAs in different aspects of our business. Because a lot of times we can do it for social media. We take these videos that we're sending, do different things with them. So let's talk a little bit about VAs and how they can help our business.
Yeah, so if you don't know what VA stands for, it's a virtual assistant. So somebody that's typically not in the States that you can get some help with. So a lot of typical things that virtual assistants or people that hire virtual assistants do is social media management, video editing, appointment setting, lead generation. So doing cold DM reaches, doing Facebook and Google ads. They do calendar management, email management, things of that nature is what VAs typically do. They are humans like us, so they can really do anything, but that tends to be a lot of those repetitive tasks that are usually what are easy to delegate off to a VA to be able to do that. I personally actually use them for social media management, editing my podcast, doing content creation, lead generation, actually doing some automations in my CRM, and actually building out my website. So I've used them for many different things. I've placed VAs also for bookkeeping services and tax services as well. So there's many things that you can do there. But for y'all that are looking to delegate tasks, what I would say to you is go through and list out all the things that you do. So just list everything that you can think about that you do on a daily basis, or and do it probably over a week. So every day, try and list out all the things that you do. Next, I want you to number them. I have two columns. One is a column of things that I hate, from the most that I hate to the least that I hate, or the most that I like to the least that I like, however you want to do that. And then the next column will be how much time does this actually take? And actually, I'll give you a third column too. Does this make me money? So you want to start delegating the tasks that, one, don't make you money, two, that you hate the most, and three, that are the most time consuming. If you can get all three of those things, that would be the best thing to delegate for you. But you're really focusing in on things that don't necessarily make you money and that are very time consuming would be the best things to delegate first, because they don't make you money and they cost you a lot of time to do. So why not delegate that off to somebody else? So that's what I would do if you're trying to figure out what are those things that I can delegate. And then based on the things that you want to delegate, you can figure out who you need to get with that skill set and everything from there.
So one of the things that I see a lot of people that get in trouble with this is they need something done, but the problem of it is they don't have a system in place for your VA, right? You don't have a system, and if you don't have a system, what are some things that you need to do to try to get a system so that way a VA can kind of sit there? Because what I've seen over in my experience, if you don't have some, they're not like self starters just to figure stuff out as it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, a great question there. And that's one thing. I source a lot of my VAs from the Philippines. So they're very much, you tell them what to do and they literally do that thing. They're not thinking outside of the box, especially us go getters, us entrepreneurs. We're willing to figure it out. Okay, you give me a task, you didn't give me all the steps. Okay, I'll figure it out. A virtual assistant, or especially people from the Philippines, they typically aren't that way. It's more of, okay, I need the exact instructions. So what I like to do is actually put that in Asana. And again, this goes back to communication. So I put it in Asana, I assign the task to them, and I'll give them examples like, hey, if it's content creation, hey, here's the kind of content that I like and I want to replicate something like this. Now they have something to look at and really start telling them, hey, here's a schedule, or telling them things that you want to do, but then also communicating to them and stressing that, hey, I know maybe I'm not giving you quite everything, but I want you to try and figure this out on your own. Like, let's have that conversation. If you're getting stumped, come talk to me about it. But let's see how much you can figure out. But I would say, as far as getting that system in place, is really just having somewhere where it can be really just on paper. And I like to use a sauna. And what I do with my system actually is, hey, here's the content, here's some pictures or whatever, create some captions, I'll review them, and then you'll go ahead and then schedule and post them after that and everything. So I try and keep it really simple when it comes to SOPs. Sometimes I'll say, hey, here's what I want to do. And I don't even create some of my SOPs anymore. Actually, I had a VA. I transitioned from one VA to the next because I was sharing this VA with another client, and he wanted more hours. So I said, you know what? I'll pick up another VA. I'll let you have this VA. I said, hey, create me a handover document, and she went and created it based on the task that she was doing. So now she was already doing it, but maybe they're not doing that yet. What you can do is go through and create a Loom video or record yourself, get on Zoom, record the screen, and go through as you're doing those tasks, or just write those tasks down. And now you've got some kind of rudimentary recording or steps of what you do, and now they can take those, and as they're going through, you can help fill in those gaps. So again, it comes back to that communication. But those are some ways that I do that: recording yourself, going in a sauna and just starting to track it, see what's going on there, or just writing down steps that you think that you take, because you, as the one that's doing it all the time, you're going to miss a ton of steps. But it's
And if
okay,
you
just start with it.
and if you don't know what Asana is, it's basically a managing tool a task managing tool, basically,
Yeah.
would be the best way of putting it.
Yeah, Monday, ClickUp. There's plenty of them out there. Trello's another one. There's a lot of them out there that you could use, that, yeah, could do that for you.
And I can, I know I'm going to give you some instances of people that you all know, Dan and Lindy. And I always talk about, they have a VA. They do all the social media stuff. They pay her to do that. I know Jeremy Main, they have one. And they pay her to do social media and even answer the phone. And so the one thing I would say too is because I know I got another friend that he was trying to do a VA, and he's like, I want them to be here at 8 o'clock. Well, you got to remember that their time frame is on a different time zone. So if you
Yeah.
want someone there at 8 o'clock, you need to make sure that they're okay working third shift or some other time, which a lot of times that's where they are. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, and usually those in the Philippines, they are pretty used to that because they work with a lot of U.S. people. But that's definitely something you want to communicate up front. Like, hey, the expectation is that you're going to be working third shift for you.
And they can do a lot of, even the personal assistant, they can do it a lot for, they can, do manage your email. A lot of times, if you read the book Buy Back Your Time, which I
Mhm.
told you all to read, that book is Buy Back Your Time. It's a great book by Dan Martell. Buy Back Your Time. He talks about that's the first thing you should get rid of, is get rid of your email, right? That's something that
Yeah.
they can do, and they're very good at it too. That's the thing. They're very, as long as you get them in a system and a systematic of it, they're very good at making sure that's getting done.
Yeah, and if you don't have a calendar link like Calendly or something like that, definitely get that also, because that's something, especially when you go to delegate the task, rather than, hey, yeah, just take a look at my calendar, put it in there. No, you can go ahead and set up the times that work for you to schedule calls, schedule appointments for installations, whatever it may be, and maybe you have multiple calendars. And so as your VAs are booking these times, they can say, hey, here's a link to do that. Or worst case, they look at the link and they're manually talking to somebody, and then they block your calendar out now. That way, just in case maybe you've got multiple calendars, maybe you can't just use a booking link, they can look that way as well. But yeah, getting rid of that email is a huge thing. It'd be really helpful. And then booking calls too. I spend Before I had a calendar link, and even sometimes now, I feel like I spend so much time just sitting here talking back and forth with people on just booking a call. So getting rid of that too is a huge help.
Yep. Um, do you ask for deposits for Christmas lights? We do ask for a deposit, 50% up front to get on the schedule. That is a great way to get them on the schedule. We don't tell them that we're using it to buy lights. Obviously, a lot of times that's what we're doing it for, but we don't want to tell them that, because otherwise, year two, they're going to be like, well, you done bought the lights. I should get a 50% deposit. It don't work that way. So yes, we do want to ask for the deposit. We usually say that to get them on the schedule. This is another great question. A lot of people always ask, what's the cost of a VA?
So it depends on what agency you go with, or if you go directly for yourself. I mean, it could be anywhere from, I would say, probably $500 a month if you're doing it yourself, very part time, all the way up to $2,000 a month. So very affordable. My services are for 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week, and it's $850 a month or $1,500 a month.
Yep. And you can use a service. You can also go find them online.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you use a service, it helps vet them out. Um, onlinejobs.ph is a place that
Mhm.
you can go find them if you want to try to find them. Freelancer, which I've always told you all about that one. I've used it quite a bunch. And
Yeah.
that's
Upwork,
actually who
another
I,
one.
you do what now?
Upwork is another one.
Upwork, Fiverr,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if it's something quick, like you know, it's the difference of, are you looking for somebody long term versus short term? You,
Yeah.
for Fiverr, if you need a picture done, something, whatever, you can go on Fiverr and they could do it pretty quick for you. So awesome. Well, what I always like to ask, what is some words of advice before we jump off of here?
When you're going into any conversation, I would say think about that end in mind. What are you trying to get out of that conversation at the end of the day? Most of us are trying to get a sell, of course, but what result do you want to have from that conversation besides the sell when it comes to that conversation? Just think about that end in mind and then backtrack on those things that you need to talk about and figure out with the customer. So figuring out their vision, helping them understand the next steps and everything like that. That would be my advice, is just really think about what the end goal is and reverse engineer for that conversation to be the best conversation you can have.
Awesome, Sean. Or Sean. Philip. I was looking at Sean's right here, what he wrote. Awesome, Philip. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate it. Again, if you want to go check out christmaslights.io, if you need lights, I seen somebody asking if you need lights, you can go to christmaslights.io/lights, or you can just go to christmaslight, take the S off.io. We'll take you to the same page. I do have in-person training coming up in November, the first week of November here in Cincinnati. I'm going to have one more class here. I also, if you want to do the online, I've got the online. If you need a website, I've got that. If you need the referral cards, this is something that you can ask for your referrals. You can go to christmaslights.io. I've got a resource of marketing stuff, the referral cards, the review cards. Definitely go check it out. Appreciate everybody for coming on here tonight. And other than that, we'll see you all later. But hang on, Philip. Don't jump off here yet.
All right. Well, thanks, Jason.